Linn-Mar regular school board meeting to order at 5 p.m. in the boardroom of the Learning Resource Center. Can you please take roll to determine a quorum?
Buckholtz, Maury.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Rollinger.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Wall.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present at 5 o'clock.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Clark and a second by Melissa. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. At this time, I'm going to call those who have signed up to speak tonight to the podium for audience communications in the order that you have signed up. The board will receive and acknowledge comments but will not engage in a dialogue with the speaker because of the set agenda for the meeting. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Remarks should be respectful and not contain names or other identifying information about students, teachers, administrators, or other personnel. For additional information on audience participation during board meetings, please visit policy 204.9 on the Linn-Mar website. Amanda Pierce Snyder.
Hello. As you stated, my name is Amanda Pierce Snyder. I am a Linn-Mar graduate, and I have 2 children in Echo Hill. I did not have a lot of friends when I was in school, nor was I heavily involved in activities, but I enjoyed my time here. And I always wanted my children to be Lions. But I have come to realize that the Linn-Mar of the past is no longer, and it makes me sad. Very sad for all of the Linn-Mar students of the future, and sad because I don't know if my children will be a part of this district when they are older. Every board meeting I come to, I hear about equality, inclusion, diversity, mental health, and masks. The only thing I feel that this board should truly worry about is mental health. The mental health issues being caused by the unnecessary mandates, the mental health issues being caused by distancing from their friends, and the mental health issues caused by bullying. I see the bully-free signs around the district, and I thought we were, but we clearly are not. I have recently heard multiple families leaving this district because of bullying and the anxiety and depression that it causes, and that we have 1 counselor per 400 students in the high school. Go ahead and let that sink in. 1 counselor per 400 students. How is 1 person supposed to help that many students? I found out yesterday from my nephew that goes to Kennedy, Linn-Mar is known for bullying. How is that a thing? I understand that bullying is a thing. I know. I was bullied in school. But to be known for that is not okay. That is what we need to focus on. This board needs to focus on truly being a zero tolerance policy or having a zero tolerance policy for bullying. You need to stop focusing on the mandates for the masks and the distancing and the vaccines and focus on what is truly facing Linn-Mar today. Because if you do not, we will no longer be the desired district in this area. And if we do not provide adequate resources and counselors for our high schools, our enrollment will continue to decline. As a district, we need to come together and become the Linn-Mar that I grew to love. But if you keep up what you are doing, you will continue to drive a wedge between parents, staff, and community members. Please let the parents make the medical decisions for their children as they know what is best for their children. You need to focus on educating and keeping them accountable for their behaviors when they are within these walls. Also, I have heard some board members, I know some board members want to think that this is not an issue for our enrollment, but it is. It clearly is. And clearly my children are not currently being exposed to what is happening in the high school, but I am watching. We are all watching, and people will leave. Thank you.
Ralph Kendrick.
Hello, my name is Ralph Kendrick. I have 2 children in the district. I've been a taxpayer for 20 years in this district. I do appreciate all of your service. It's not an easy job, and I thank you for that. Last board meeting, you talked about an $8 million shortfall that had resulted from 96 students leaving in the past 2 years. You had 2 questions. Where did the students go, and why did they leave? I hope to shed some light on those 2 things. According to the Iowa Department of Education website, from 2019 to 2021, Cedar Rapids private school enrollment experienced a lot of increases. Summit Schools up 32%, Cedar Valley Christian up 18%, St. Matthews up 17%, Isaac Newton up 10%, Xavier up 5%. These 5 schools had an increase of 133 students in the last 2 years. You also asked, why did they leave? I reached out to a couple parents that have either currently or are planning to disenroll their students. One parent enrolled their child in Xavier in January. She had the following to say, "I feel like the school pushes a liberal agenda. I don't think students should know the political views of their teachers, but one teacher has a cardboard cutout of Bernie Sanders in the room. My child was getting hissed at and scratched at Oak Ridge by the furries. One furry preaches about her love for Satan, and when my child said he believed, she sprayed water at him. But it was the events surrounding the walkout that were the final straw. Kids running around with their flags as capes, the makeout session after the walkout, the gun threats we were told were hoaxes, but I saw the texts. My child knew the girl who sent the text saying she was going to shoot some kids. She didn't even get suspended." Parent number 2, "We've submitted the paperwork for our child to leave the district for Alburnett in the fall of 2022. Our main reasons are the political agendas that have been on the display at the high school and the way they handle COVID restrictions. I want a more conservative school that I'm not constantly worried about if there will be an LGBTQ awareness day, or that my kids will be forced to cover their faces with a mask." Here's the final point. I had 3 parents reach out to me. Their students are leaving and they're not in your current numbers. You're counting on an increase of 50 students next year and 100 the year after that. These 3 aren't in those numbers, and I think there are a lot more. Your $8 million deficit, I think, is probably more like 10 or 12 million. Do the research, find out why parents are leaving, and fix the problems associated with that. Thank you.
Christina Bryan.
My name is Christina Bryan. I have 4 kids, ages 9 to 15 in this district. I can't believe that I'm standing here worrying that you're going to reinstate a mask mandate again. But it's on the news, and I felt the urge to speak before it's too late. I could talk about the science and how it doesn't make sense that airborne viruses are not prevented using cloth or paper masks. The packaging it comes in even says so. But if you actually did the research, you would know that already. Even in New Jersey, of all places, they just lifted the school mask mandate statewide. I encourage you to look at the growth of our young children that they have made when you removed their face coverings. Masking little children is harmful in their development, and there is data to prove this. I have a friend whose preschooler is autistic, and since they removed his mask, his speech has improved and his communication skills have grown. My autistic high schooler was struggling to understand social cues. When you can't see people's faces, it hinders communication. Things have improved since the mask became optional, and I thought we were promised to move forward after the shots were available. Yet here we are. My children were home combined for a month quarantining in January because of your policy before you changed it, which has since been shortened, and I'm grateful. But during that time, we did see a spike. However, the spike was everywhere in schools and homeschool communities. It had nothing to do with masking. My kids experienced COVID firsthand, and they watched nearly all of their friends and their friends' families have COVID, and they spent that time off playing video games, Zooming into dance, video chatting, hanging out online. They now understand COVID more than ever before. Enough is enough. As a community, we are ready to move back with life and go back to normal. I respect people's choice to wear a mask, and I teach my children to respect everyone for their decisions, and I'm asking you to continue to return the same favor. I cannot justify masking my now immune children and all of their immune friends. We have done that, and we had to do what we had to do for the last 2 years. But now, it doesn't make sense. More recently, half of the household was attending masks, while my younger ones had to go in masks. We can't go back, especially now with herd immunity being achieved. We have neighboring schools that have been unmasked for the last year, and we have not seen any kind of devastation that has been preached to our students. In fact, we are seeing a massive decline in our cases in our schools with no mandate, and thankfully no hospitalizations of any students. As a state and a country, we are moving on. Our emergency order is being lifted the 15th of February for our state. I, along with many others, will not go back. I will not remask my children. You have no idea how stupid I sound to my kids when I'm saying that they can go and spend the night with their friends, but then they have to get on a bus and put a mask back on with those same students. They're not buying it anymore. Enough is enough. Our teachers and students deserve better. I have a lot I want to say about our teachers. God bless them. They deserve so much more. I'm going to save that for a different board meeting, and I close with this. You're on probation with a lot of families right now who are deciding what's next steps for our children's futures. If you reinstate masks, I will take them a few miles that way where they respect choice and I don't have to make decisions on who's suing them. Regardless, I will continue to fight that not only for our enrollment but our tax dollars go to the district we choose to attend. My children will not be a yo-yo in your mask mandate again. Thank you.
Geraldine Jones.
My name is Geraldine Jones. I'm a parent in the district. We are going on yet another month where our elementary students are being targeted. Last month, it was shared that the reasons for low enrollment was in relation to the derecho and waiting on a vaccine to become available for the younger students. Let's share the whole truth. I personally know families that have left because of the way the district administration continues to infringe on their constitutional rights. I know I am constantly wondering, what if? What if you reinstate the mask mandate now that our school has been mentioned specifically? Our children cannot live like this. Governor Reynolds signed a proclamation last week. I assume it will be discussed today during the legislative update. I ask that we discuss lifting all mask mandates and social distancing recommendations. This includes the signs stating, "Please wear a mask" on the doors of our elementary schools. This also includes the use of strongest verbatim possible. Because you believe these protocols should be in place does not mean we all do. These guidelines you believe work are currently displayed only in our elementary schools and not present in our middle schools or our high schools because of the reason it's just not enough room to distance. So what? We don't care about their health because there's not enough room to distance? We'll just distance the smaller ones? If you believe these protocols worked, you would make sure that this is present across all of our buildings. None of these mitigations make sense. This isn't about enforcing our beliefs into a constant updating of the Return to Learn plan. It's about making sure you serve the people in alignment with your oath. Where in the Constitution does it support the limitations put forth to obtain public education because of a virus with a 99.8% survival rate? Last meeting, it was also discussed that there isn't any policy always to refer to. So don't. You have no obligation to ensure the families of this community practice any sort of medical practices. Your oath of office is to focus on education, funding, and to not extort or infringe on the families of this district, especially in the use of our children. Let me remind you of your oath. It is to establish policy and operate under the functionality that aligns with the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Iowa. On February 15th, 2021, I urge you to strongly consider lifting on or before all COVID protocols and leave these decisions up to the families of this district. Otherwise, I am left with no further option but to hold those accountable. That is not a threat. It is a promise. Thank you.
Anna Clymer.
Hello, Anna Clymer. I am a parent of a high schooler and a middle schooler, and I just wanted to kind of speak to the legislative update that you all will be speaking to and just let you know that we as parents, as community members, are paying attention and trying to support all the efforts that you're making to keep students at the center of the work that you're doing, keep science at the forefront of the work that you're doing with children that are more vulnerable, with staff that are more vulnerable, and keeping our students equipped to think forward and learn forward into the diverse world they will be entering. So I thank you all for your service and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Reverend Gary Sneller.
Hello, I'm Reverend Gary Sneller, and I am the parent of two daughters who graduated from Linn-Mar High School in the 1990s, and they're doing great in life, partly because of the education they received here at Linn-Mar schools. I'm also a taxpayer and co-leader of a local faith alliance called Stand in Unity that is working toward racial justice and equity in our communities. And I wanted to speak tonight about the agenda item 602, public update recommendation policy to public participation in board meetings. Public participation in school board meetings is an essential strength of our democratic society. and I applaud your efforts to make sure that this public discourse can continue to take place in an open and efficient and organized manner. This is essential for us as citizens and as persons associated with this school district. Public discourse can provide great opportunities to hear diverse opinions on matters of public concern. And it can also provide opportunities, on the other hand, where people can express some very uncomfortable things for you to hear. Thank you, school board members, for hearing, for listening to all voices, diverse voices, even when it's uncomfortable. Thank you for working hard to ensure that quality public education is available to all students in the Linn-Mar School District.
That's the end of our list. I want to thank each of you for coming, especially with our new process, signing in ahead of time, and for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. Moving on to informational reports, discussions, and presentations, we have an online learning update from Associate Superintendents Bob Reed and Nathan Weir.
Well, good evening, and thank you for inviting me for this opportunity to speak about our online learning program. Just to start with the why of the process, thinking back to the 2020/2021 school year is where we started this, and the purpose of it was really to give our families some choice in the instructional model that they would like their child to receive through a pandemic. Through the course of this, I think it's really helped us do many different things. It's refined our technology integration skills in the classroom. It's helped, well, it drove our one-to-one initiative, which was 4 years to 1 year, basically, and it's provided families some alternatives to on-site learning that they desired. To kind of think about the program, let's back up a little bit and just kind of start back where we started. Last academic year in September, we started our school year with 1,050 students. And you can see February 2021, we were down to 755, and then our last enrollment check before fourth quarter was 544 students. Many of those students, I would say a vast majority of them, basically returned to on-site learning when their families felt it was safe for them to do that. This was the option that they pursued. We took feedback from that at the end of that academic year, and then we started thinking, well, what are we going to offer for next year, this current academic year? We provided families with information on the school website about Calvert Learning, which is the platform for our K-5 courses, and all of those Calvert Learning courses are year-long courses. The grading period is the full academic year. The other program that we offered information to families on was our Edmentum, and that is semester-based, so there are grading periods at the end of the semester, then, of course, at the end of the year with those things. We provided that information on the website. Nathan did a little overview with Edmentum people also that parents could dig in. We provided links so the parents could research it and look at those programs and make the decision, do I want my children online or do I want them to return to on-site learning for the next academic year? We kept the enrollment period open until June 1st. This was our initial enrollment, and this is how it shook out at that time. When we left the school year concluded, as we projected, we're going to have this many students involved in our online program at the various level. Then August came, and then new fears arose amongst our community about the spread of this, when kids would get vaccinated and such of that nature. So basically, we opened a second enrollment period prior to the start of the year. Actually, I think we opened it right up until the time that the on-site academic year started. And then our enrollment jumped up considerably, both at the K-5 level, which is Calvert Learning, and the 6-12 level, which was Edmentum. Part of that was that we said that as soon as students would be vaccinated, if that was the parents' concern, that they could return to on-site learning as parents wished, so many days after that vaccination. And we honored all those. Thus, we had quite a bit of migration at semester time. Some prior to that, just depended on the vaccine and when kids could get in, and their parents felt comfortable in sending them back. We gave options. We had some families return as early as October, just because the online learning program didn't really fit their child's needs, and we accommodated those. It could have been for IEP reasons. It could have been for family structural reasons. It could be a numerous thing. A vast number of them returned in the end of November, beginning of December, or at semester. And that's where we're at with our current numbers right now. Right now, we have 128 active students in our system, and you can see the K-5 numbers with 35 and the 612 numbers, 93. And we have pretty equal distribution at the elementary level as far as the number of kindergartners through 5th grade. It's just not like one grade levels. They're all 5th graders, and there's no one under that. So that's where we're at right now. What we've been thinking about as we've moved through this program is really looking at our K-5 year-long courses to continue to provide that support for the students that are in those learning environments. For families that were in need of tech help, we offered our innovation coach, Michelle Lake. Part of her job was to reach out to those families. Part of her job, as well as mine at the elementary level, was to look at student progress and monitor students to make sure that they were progressing at the rate they should, and looking at the different reports. I know Nathan at the secondary level and secondary school counselors and principals looked at that 612 and made sure that kids are progressing, and if not, what steps do we need to have to support those learning. We do have a good plan. Well, we will have a plan for state assessments coming up, because we do have a smattering of kids grades 3 through 11 that will need to take the ISASP in the spring, and we'll look at their scores, looking at their learning with that. And we've also, at the elementary and intermediate level, our instructional coaches, our innovation coaches have been monitoring FAST data with those families that have been off-site also. So we're still monitoring our students, whether they're on-site or off-site. One of the things that really is going to help is to reach out to families this second semester and get some feedback from them. Things they liked about the learning platform, concerns they may have had, and then also, is this something that you may be interested in next year also? Nathan and I are meeting with Edmentum representatives actually this Thursday to start our planning for the next academic year as far as what we can offer, what we should offer, and what would meet those family needs. At the secondary level, within the program of studies, there is Linn-Mar Digital Learning. You can look that up on the thing, and it lists the different Edmentum courses right now. And those Edmentum courses that are offered to our high school students would include personal finance, Health 1, government, and some elective courses. The high school students can't take courses through Edmentum that would supplant our core instruction that's provided on site. Let's say we had a student, I'd have to look back at the full listing, that would be very interested in taking a foreign language that we don't offer. If it's listed on Edmentum, they can register for that course and have a self-paced experience with that outside our school day. So as we're thinking, number one, we're going to gather feedback from our families and think about how can we best serve our families and meet their needs. Number two, what type of enrollment period are we going to have? And then number three, the Edmentum platform for the high school fits very well. Is Calvert Learning what we want to use for our K-5 students going forward, or what makes best sense for our families there? It's been really good to work with the families, because a lot of them, as soon as they were ready, were able to transition those kids back in maybe 1 to 2 weeks at the elementary. Most of our secondary people, 6-12, I shouldn't say 6, but 7-12, returned at semester when it seemed like a more natural break to their courses. Because if I'm taking Algebra 1, I've got a semester done, that would be the time to transition back for those things. It's been really interesting to hear and learn about online learning and seeing where we're going with this. I don't think it's something that will ever go away in the education system right now, just because we have diverse needs, and that could be, as families consider this, it could be medical, it could be anxiety, it could be maybe my child learns best online. Maybe that's the perfect place for them. So we want to honor those and honor those families and make our commitments based on the feedback that we receive. So that's a really sky-high interview of where we're at in the process and what we're looking at as far as the numbers are concerned. Do you have any specific questions about our offerings this year and what we've done with the families or how we've helped transition families back to on-site learning?
I just have one question about the elementary, the Calvert learning. When it originally was proposed to us, it was, there weren't live teachers. It was through the program, and then if they needed help. So far, how has that gone? Because I know I had concerns about that, but you guys assured me that, or us, that there were safety checks in place and that kind of, so can you just, how'd that go?
Yeah, that's a great question. Those safety checks are us monitoring student progress with that. For some families, it's wonderful experience, and other families, it just wasn't for their learner. And we've worked with families for that. I know in the Calvert system, they could sign on to some live videos, not live videos, but some asynchronous videos, or the instructors would be in touch with those families. Within the Edmentum system, we get a communication log of everything that goes back and forth between families and instructors, and the Edmentum instructors, Edmentum/Calvert instructors have been really good about reaching out. It's like, hey, can you tell me about this family? Is there a change in their status? Did they return on site? So it's been good that way. I really want to get, for the elementary families that have stayed with it this long, that's where I really think we'll garnish some feedback. But I still want to go back to our original enrollment for those people saying, I want to hear all the positives that you may have had, maybe the things you were indifferent about, and maybe think about the negatives of the program so we can address that to make it better for families in the future.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to you bringing back like the survey results and what our interest is for next year, because I do think it's important to have this opportunity for families that want to stay, because I do know it works for some families. This is the best option for them, and it works for their learner. So I'm glad that we're like sticking with it and looking for ways to improve what we're offering, but I'd like to have you guys come back and show us what those families' feedback is on these programs.
Yeah, I'll be happy to come back and discuss themes of the feedback, because I know it will be varied across the spectrum.
Themes would be great.
But with any type of feedback, those themes will emerge. And number one, what are the themes and how are we going to address those moving forward?
Sounds good. I just have a really quick question. The Calvert Learning and the Edmentum, is that the same company? Or
Yes, it is the
same. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, their elementary platform is called Calvert, the
Okay.
secondary is
That's what I
Edmentum.
thought. I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't misunderstood.
No, good question.
Anyone else? All right. Thank
Well,
you for the update.
Yep,
Really
thank you, everyone.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
Next, we have our ISB Day on the Hill and legislative update. I'm going to let Shannon kick this one off. You went to Day on the Hill?
A Day on the Hill, for those of you who don't know, it's a kind of a focused opportunity for educators across Iowa, superintendents and board members primarily, to come and talk to reps at the Capitol, and it's also a chance to hear from Iowa Association of School Boards as far as just informational pieces they have, and then kind of priorities from the group as well. It was good to get back at the Capitol again. It's been a while since it's been an opportunity for us to do that. It was a very busy day at the Capitol. There was also FFA Day at the Capitol as well, so there were clones of kids walking around with their FFA jackets all over the Capitol. And I heard our students were there earlier in the day, and I missed them, but there was definitely a heavy focus of FFA kids there as well. Great to talk with our reps. I was able to talk with Senator Mathis, Representative Donahue, and Jurdy. Was not able to connect with Representative McClintock, hoping to follow up with him at some point as well. Had great conversations with each of them about what our priority areas are as far as advocating for schools, and then also a chance to listen to them as far as what they're seeing and hearing in the first several weeks of the legislative session as well. From the IASB group, it was priorities were already been decided at ISB conference, so they've reiterated some of the key points. The first and foremost piece, which is I think our priority advocacy portion right now, is to continue to fund requests for funding for adequate SSA increase of at least 3%. I don't know if you've probably noticed or read my information I've sent you. Right now the Senate has proposed 2.25, the House at 2.5, and the governor at 2.5 as well. Those are numbers that are not ideal for us, not ideal for schools across Iowa. And this is a year that it's interesting that they actually do have the budget at the state level to adequately fund education and provide tax cuts and tax relief, which is pretty unique. That's not always the opportunity to do both, and they do have that potential this year to do so. So I think there's a natural advocacy opportunity for us to do that. I do think that we'll probably start seeing pretty quick action on that this week. By law, they have to have it, I believe, by February 11th, I believe, is the 30-day deadline for them to set SSA. They don't always meet that timeline of their own law, but that is the target. And if we don't get it by the 11th, I would guess it would be early next week we'll have that number. So if you're going to reach out to legislators, now is the time to do so on that topic of really advocating for SSA. Other topic areas that were of high interest across the state, with the voucher bill, the governor's omnibus bill, a very heavy emphasis on vouchers. I think the clear message across the board is parents have choice. We fully support parent choice, whether it is in-person learning, homeschool, dual enrollment, private schools, certainly support our choice for parents in the schools. Just that clear delineation of public funds should go to public entities with the full transparency of how those funds are being spent. Because with the voucher bill, there is no transparency requirements at all for those public dollars that the public schools have to follow instead. So that is a definite key area to stay tuned into. Two other areas we really addressed at the Capitol, the workforce issues that everybody is facing across Iowa in education, whether it's teachers, bus drivers, ed assistants, cooks, you name it. There's a definite demand and need there across the state and across the country, not just in education, obviously, but across all workforces, I think, are experiencing that challenge. Education is definitely feeling the pressure. So that's an area that I'm trying to get them to address at the state level, whether it would be licensure challenges, incentives, different ways to recruit people to come into public education as well. So those are definite priority areas. And the last one that is pretty unique to some districts in Iowa, and we're one of them, is the at-risk funding inequity that is across the state and has been for quite a few years now. Just a reminder for those of you new to the board or veteran board members, some schools are allowed to levy up to 5% level for increased funds for at-risk students, and we are not able to do that. We're at the 2.5% level, and we are locked in by Iowa code to do that. So we, in essence, receive half of the funds in that area as some of our neighboring schools receive as well. So the request is not to increase that 5% amount. The request is to allow schools to all get to that 5% amount. There has been a lot of conversation about that's a big leap to make in 1 year. So we've been to talk about doing that through a step approach, whether that's a half a point increase or a point increase over the course of 5 years to eventually get all schools on that same playing field. We've been talking about that one with legislators for years, but this year feels like it has more interest than in some years in the past. So hopefully we'll be able to see that one go through some healthy steps there as well. So those are kind of the key areas from the visit. I take any questions anybody else has. I've not been able to monitor things too much today, so I don't know what came out of the Capitol today, if anybody else heard anything else, but that was, it was good to get back in-person conversations and to be part of the buzz of the Capitol again. Was fun to get back to that level of conversation instead of just all email and Zoom as well. So,
I'd like to make a comment. We talked last time, JT gave us where we were financially in the district. And the reason why I want to say something, I said something then, I'm going to reiterate it, simply because of the February 11th date that the legislatures have said this, and that is to really get our Linn-Mar district patrons to contact their legislator, Republican or Democrat, independent, it doesn't make any difference. This is really a key issue, and the support, this 2.25 that the senators want, and the governor wants 2.5, neither one of those are even close to what we should have for our students. And when you got a $1.25 billion surplus, $1.25 billion, and that doesn't count the revenues from gambling that could really help every school district in the state of Iowa, and they're not doing it, okay? If the patrons of our district would call, I think it would help. If you're a teacher, don't tell them you're a teacher, because they'll just basically turn you off right away. If you're a school board member, they'll turn you off right away because they know where you're coming from. But, you know, with the quality of education that we have in the state of Iowa, we used to be in the top 5, and now we're down in the 20s someplace. If you really want that education for your kids and keep our teachers there with all that they've gone through with the pandemic, and they've gone through, you know, the coronavirus, all this stuff, you know, hybrid learning, virtual learning. Never was taught that when they were in school. It's just that we want to give our kids the best. And if you don't have kids in the district, like I do not anymore, he's graduated, think of what we're going to have to do to subsidize what we already have. And that is to increase property tax. And that involves everybody, whether you have a student or you don't have students in the district. We've been doing a very, very good job of maintaining the level, like JT pointed out, and our commitment not to raise those. But push comes to shove, I don't want to see that happen to any patron of the Linn-Mar district, whether you're retired or not. Our kids need it. Okay? Our teachers need it. And that's the only reason why I'm here, is students and teachers. Okay? One other thing that I would like to share at this time. You mentioned, Superintendent Bisgard mentioned teacher shortage. At one time, we had 3,000 people going into education. Now it's down to about 1,700. And this is for the teachers and administrators of our district. When I came here, I've been here a long time, I was told by the foundation that there was at least 80 former students of mine that are teaching or administrators in this district. And to me, that makes me extremely happy. I challenge those people, those teachers and administrators, to tell your students that yes, I am a Linn-Mar grad. And this is why I came back here, to teach in the Linn-Mar district. And I don't know if it will work, but if they knew that and they knew the reasons why they came back to this district to teach, I think it might get some of those students thinking as a career path that if it was okay with them and it's okay with me, mom and dad are still here, aunts and uncles, grandpa, I've just challenged that, hopefully, in all my heart, okay, that we try to get as many teachers as we can, and this is just one small way. And it doesn't cost anybody anything, but just having a conversation. Sorry for taking up so much time.
Mark?
Does anyone else have questions for Shannon on Day on the Hill?
No, but can I just make one very quick comment, which is that you touched on just one of the inequities that exist in school funding in Iowa. And I hope people will kind of try to explore that a little bit on their own. There are several ways in which funding for different districts is not equitable. And, you know, we should really, we should all, I think we all can agree that, you know, our students all across the state deserve equitable funding. And we should, when we have those issues, we should all, I mean, I just think it's something that's easy for all of us to rally around, is that all of our students are getting fair funding. That's all I wanted to say.
In your packets, last time we forgot to print off the summary and then we emailed it out. So there's a printed copy of what we emailed. It says January 28th across the top. So those were the bills that had been introduced education-wise until that point. And then there's today's update, which is more of a summary of which bills are moving forward. So you've got February 8th, February 9th, which bills are going to be in their subcommittee meetings. Most of those will have Zoom links if you're interested. There's also a list of bills that have not been assigned to subcommittee. The first funnel is next Friday, correct?
Correct, yep. first
Next
funnel's
Friday.
Next Friday.
So typically, if bills have not been assigned, they have to pass out of committee to get through the first funnel and still be active. So if these haven't moved beyond subcommittee, then they're most likely not going to move past the first funnel. So that's just a summary. It doesn't mean they can't, because anything can happen in the next 2 weeks. But and then after that list, there's an updated list of the bills that have been introduced since January 28th. So there's been 112 education bills introduced this session. You don't have to know about all of them, but here's an update. There are no opinions in this. It's just, here are the bills. So just so you can reference when you're hearing people talk about, hey, did you hear about this thing, or what's that? This is what's in session right now. And then we'll get a list going after the first funnel of what made it through. And then we do have a draft letter that we're working on for the support of the at-risk dropout prevention. And then we're working on one for SSA and then one for vouchers. Obviously, those two were, they're almost ready to share with everybody for comment. We're just looking at some specific numbers that we got to plug in to reference our specific district. But we're looking to send at least those two out this week before that decision on the 11th, and then we'll focus on dropout prevention and at-risk. But of course, everyone will get a chance to look at those, and you can choose whether or not, if we have consensus, that kind of thing. So,
Hey, Britt.
yeah.
How, do you know, or Melissa, because you guys have worked on this, do you know how likely HF 2177 cameras in the classroom, how realistic is that?
It was just introduced, and so it's assigned subcommittee. I think that it hasn't been out long enough to really have a good idea, but I know there's already been talk about it not being constitutional.
Well, yeah.
So
I wouldn't doubt
I
that.
would guess that if it makes it through, it'll probably be challenged, but it hasn't been out long enough for there to be a consensus on if it's going to go through or not. But tuning into on the 9th to the subcommittee meeting would give you a good idea of where people are kind of feeling on that one.
Okay, I would personally, if that looks like it's advancing, like to see us come out very strongly against that. It just feels like a slap in the face to the teachers, and pretty soon we're not going to have any teachers left to spy on, so.
I'm not sure that it's even allowed under FERPA.
It probably isn't, but I just, that one just, I don't know.
No,
You hear so many, but that one just really struck a nerve with me.
I don't think that, FERPA was going to allow that, but we'll just have to see how it progresses. Like I said, I think it was introduced at the end of last week, so it's only been out there a few days. So.
This one also hasn't been sent to committee yet, so I'm hopeful that it's not likely to progress, but SF 2040 would have some pretty significant consequences, I think, for our district. This is the one that essentially restricts districts from being able to collect any racial or demographic information.
That would go against federal law. So we'll just have to let them figure that out. So if this passes, it's in direct violation of a federal law. Federal usually trumps.
That was my
state
concern,
law.
was I don't even understand how that could so it was basically it was stated as unless required by federal law. So it's saying only for the things that we can't not collect that information for, and it just was baffling to me of why we would not want to collect that information to be able to identify those disparities that we would want to be able to address as a district. So that was.
We'll see if it gets assigned anywhere. Right now, it's just kind of sitting out there, so.
And then I was also looking for there was one that I thought we would maybe want to support, but I'm not finding the status on that, but HF 2109, which is the Your Life Iowa crisis information for families that would go on, and for students that would go on ID cards. Have either of you heard anything more about that?
What number again?
HF 2109.
That's the one where they put the suicide hotline on the ID cards?
Yeah, but it's not just the suicide hotline, it's for mental health, substance use, just kind of any kind of family crisis or a student crisis, they can call that hotline for emergency support. So it's I think it would be a great thing for students to have. There's no cost to us, essentially, and it's a free hotline for
One question.
for families,
I've
and
not heard about that
statewide.
one recently at all, Melissa, so I have to do some
Okay.
checking. But that-
Yeah.
It's right here. It actually says assigned to subcommittee.
Oh, it is, okay.
These have 2109, correct?
Page are you on? Is that on this one or this one? The updated one?
Fourth page of the 12822.
Perfect.
Very top of the page.
I just read it just a moment ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I did too.
Oh, yeah.
I can't find it.
Top, right on top of, like, page 6.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Right on the top.
there.
Updated?
Counting front to back.
Investing in brown powers.
That's part of the challenge until the first final deadline. There's so many bills out there to keep track
Yeah,
of.
I felt really, I felt
this is
really
the
bad, like, when we
challenge.
compiled this, I'm like, oh, this one's 10 pages, and this one's like 14,
Oh, I'm looking
so,
in the wrong packet. Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 packets there, so it makes it.
see what happens, what comes out
That's
this
what
week,
happened, because I was looking at the other one too. Like, I don't see it.
Okay, so it's just not on this one.
right, because it was,
the
it came
261.
out before the 128, so it's on the first round.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Good, so.
No problem.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts? All right, we'll just let you know when those drafts are ready for review by the board. And again, like last year, have to put your name on it. We'll just go with consensus. If we have consensus, we go with that. So
Thank you very, very much for putting this together. It's a lot of work, and I'm very appreciative.
There was also one, and now, I'm failing to find it, but there was also one that had some new restrictions to public comment that was a little bit concerning to me, and I'm trying to find it again now.
public comment for board meetings?
Yes.
Oh,
That's just a
that
one-liner.
hasn't moved at all.
That hasn't moved, okay.
No, that was going to be that you have to be a resident of the district to speak.
Right,
And
or
there was-
have kids in the
Or
district
have
in order
kids,
to.
yeah, it hasn't moved.
Okay, great.
So, and I do think that there was a provision where we could have waived that, but I'm not, like, it hasn't moved, so I'm not worried about it right now.
I'm going to keep my eyes on that one as well, just to make sure that,
Well, there was concerns that that would mean that, like, people from the AEA,
right,
Wouldn't be able to come
our
to,
own
like-
employees wouldn't be able to come
it would be, yeah, it would
address
be
us
difficult, so.
if they didn't live in the district.
And Melissa?
I was unable to attend this time, so I'll let.
I was there. Started off, Nathan gave some really good information on stuff that's coming through in regards to paras and teachers, kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it, an accelerated type program. He sent some links this week to read more about it. I haven't got through all of that yet, but that certainly seems like it's a step in the right direction. We kind of broke up into groups of all of the different groups and got basically just discussed in each broke down group ideas, kind of hashing out some ideas on how to get students more involved in each of the individual groups. I was in the group of agriculture, and I think the two young ladies that were there had some exceptional ideas and some really great ideas from the outside looking in on some things, whether they can be implemented or not. It was just kind of putting the ideas out there to get the ball rolling.
Wasn't one of them from Farm Bureau was representing?
I believe, and then the other was from 4-H.
Yeah, so they were there sharing from their jobs, and one person was subbing for another lady that generally comes, but they had great ideas and a lot of enthusiasm, I think is a good way to put it. I think that's how you felt. Excuse me. We spent time in the groups. There were 3 priorities that the whole CTE was reviewing, and there was a review sheet where we went through each part. And the teachers I was working with, there were about 4 of us, or 4 of them, to go through and say, how do you think we at Linn-Mar are doing with each one of these? And it was talking about how the Linn-Mar High School's CTE, which is Career Trade Education Program, aligns to local needs. So there was some discussion about that. And then promoting the CTE program to include general and specific populations. And then, again, the local need overview. And I thought that all of the discussion was pertinent and good, and everyone seemed very realistic. This part's strong, this part we need to work on. We can always, use more information from people, and we'd love to connect with more, and very open to it. I love the information that Nathan shared that had come up through Governor Reynolds with the teacher, para-educator. It's a 2-year grant, and I know we're talking about getting involved in it, and I don't know all the particulars, but we were thinking of going for like 10 cohorts. It's 40, if I understand this correct, and Nathan, you can correct me if I, $47,000 over 2 years to get a degree. This would be going toward the people that would be involved. And if they're working, if they're paraeducators, they can earn money working, and then they can be earning credit for their time. And the last discussion that went on, off and on through the whole thing, was just as educators, along the way, we often spot students who would make wonderful teachers. It doesn't matter. I know as a 2nd grade teacher, you could say something and another little person could say exactly what you said, but said it to a person, and boom, that made sense to them because they added a little something. So it was, again, I've heard this discussion more than once, that educators need to emphasize that education is a good thing to go into. We have to blow our own horn, which is not something that we necessarily do. So I'm hoping that along the way, the younger the better. Anyone who sees a little person, or moms and dads who know their child would make a wonderful teacher, make sure that they, I don't know what the right word is, but push for that and have them talk with their teachers about it and friends. And anyway, the best way to get more is from within. And that's my summary.
I think that's a really important, just like we point out when kids excel in math or they excel in science, like when you're good at something, point it out. Because kids need those affirmations just as much as anyone.
Yes, anytime.
Anyone have questions for Matt or Sandra? All right. Next up, Rachel, report on your city council meeting from January 20th.
I didn't bring my little paper. I thought that we were not going to discuss it because I thought I was supposed to discuss it last time, so I didn't. There was not anything huge that I remember on it. I think just kind of some minor things. I will double check with that when I get home tonight, and if there was something big, I will let you know. I apologize.
No, that's okay. And then who went to February 3rd? It just says we're going to hear a report on, I don't think Rachel did both of them. So who did February 3rd? Anybody? Okay. That's okay. We can look back at their minutes and update. Barry, Linn County Conference Board.
I would be happy to. My apologies for being late to the meeting. Just a bit of information for the folks on the board that don't know what this is. There's a city conference board meeting and there's a county conference board meeting held on the same day. What that is that's a representative of every school board in the county, every school board in the city. Every mayor is represented from every community in the county, along with the county supervisors, and of course the leadership or the assessor board of each one. So what we do is we actually meet and approve the FY E23 budget for each situation. And it's really a good discussion, and what our main role there, I feel, is to understand property taxes, understand real estate taxes, and then the expenses to the county. So Clark, this kind of plays right into your comment about increasing real estate taxes or whatever we have to do. A couple factors in there that always kind of strike me personally. The average business in our community, whether it's Cedar Rapids, whether it affects Linn-Mar or not, is immaterial, but the average business is requesting a 39.5% reduction in valuation of their business. You know, we really don't set property taxes, you know, we set the levies, or the levies are set, and they'll come out of the state. So 39.5% of all the businesses are requesting a 39.5% reduction in their valuation. Then it goes to an appeals board, and that appeals board came back and it was about a 4.6% reduction. And then there was about 10 businesses, and a couple of them are Linn-Mar's affected quite a bit. Lindale Mall, as an example, Best Buy, and other ones that are in our district. And on those, like I said, 8.9% reduction in their valuation. So the appeal doesn't go too bad, and I asked JT about it one time and asked him what his thoughts were, and he says, well, when you're battling a big corporation like that, your hands are tied. You know, so you really can't fight them. You know, you can battle them, you can take them to court, you can do whatever you want to do. You know, so those are some major factors, and of course our district is kind of commercial property poor anyway. You know, it's a constant, you know, most of our stuff comes from real estate and stuff like that. So then you get down to the real estate valuation, and everybody was really curious, and this was a little bit of a pushback from the new mayor of Cedar Rapids, but you know, homes are really sold at a high value the last couple of years, and nobody really had a percentage, because back after the storm and the flood way back, a number of properties were pulled off of the rolls because they're not there anymore. Either that, or, you know, they're gone or they're irreparable. So with that said, what's interesting is we're always about a year and a half behind. So they're getting ready to assess all properties again moving forward, but it doesn't affect anything even into the 2024 budget when you start looking at it. So most of us wouldn't see it. So one of the questions was, is if all the houses on a neighborhood are selling for worth $225,000, well, with the valuation going up, you know, homes are selling for $300,000, $325,000 as an example. Well, should that penalize the whole neighborhood just because one house sold for $300,000? Well, the mayor pushed back on that a little bit, saying that's not really fair because it's affecting people that are not moving their property, even though their values of their homes are probably up too. But so what was interesting to me was when they reevaluate properties, they have to reevaluate neighborhoods and like properties. And if we raise Clark's taxes as an example, but we don't raise Brett's, then the state of equalization will step in because it has to be within 5% of valuation in a neighborhood. So then they'll raise Brett's anyway.
Thanks, Clark.
Yeah. So, I mean, does that make sense? You know, because you would think that maybe this is a little bubble and it might settle back down. Well, it probably won't. It might settle a little bit, but for the most part, even if you didn't sell your house, your property taxes will probably go up, or I should rephrase that. Your levy will go up and your valuation will go up, and then it just depends on what the taxes are going to be. So it was really a good discussion and a lot of questions, because there were a number of new school board members in the room that didn't understand that piece. So the assessors did a nice job of explaining it and getting deeper into it. And of course, you know, they talked about where the money's coming from when you look at your tax statement, your real estate taxes. Well, Mayor Nick made sure to point out that Kirkwood's pretty high on that list too. If you look at your numbers, that's a pretty high percentage of our taxes too. So anyway, it was actually probably the best meetings I've done this probably 5 or 6 years. Some of the best meetings I've been to, because the assessors did a real nice job of explaining everything. So
I think Kirkwood's an easy one to forget about because they ask for a bond and then they're quiet about it for a long time. Because they pass.
And I'm not saying they're not necessary.
No,
but it is a big
work,
piece of our real estate tax.
It's easy to forget about them when they're not right next door. I'm sure Prairie never forgets about them, but we kind of do. So.
That's all I got.
Thank you. I think it's always important to know the different places and impacts that have on taxes. So, Shannon, your update.
Yeah, several things for you. 2 weeks ago, I sat here and told you about a principal position opening at Westfield, and 2 weeks later, I have another principal position opening to share at Novak as well. Carol O'Donnell is going to retire effective the end of the year, and I'm hoping in 2 weeks I do not have another principal position opening to share with you. This is not a trend we want to continue. So, but it does show the staff shortages we are experiencing will be felt in all departments, whether that's teachers, bus drivers, administrators. It's just part of the current reality for us. So anyway, we will continue to work on the Westfield position, and we will add Novak. Same timeline, we'll do some collaborative work with both school staff and families as well to gather information and hope for the same timeline for hiring process there as well. Some good news to share with you. Our COVID numbers and overall illness numbers in our schools have really decreased significantly since the last time we met 2 weeks ago. Our numbers have dropped. 2 weeks ago, we sat here at about 294 total positives the week before the board meeting, and this past week we were down to 81. So a significant drop the last 2 weeks. I think last time we had 4 buildings that were at or above 10% absentee rate across the board, if I remember correctly. This time we have none, and nobody was even really close to that 10% number either. So, so glad to see those numbers improve across the board, and that's improved our staffing levels as well. Our kids are a bit healthier, our staff have been healthier. Not to say we're out of the woods on staffing, there's still a challenge at every building, every department, but not quite to the level we were experiencing coming out of the holidays. So hoping those numbers continue to improve as well. Our facility advisory subcommittee did meet last Thursday. We met with OPN and had a really good conversation about the initial work that the large committee did, that shared with the board, I think it was back in December. We have given OPN asked for some information from them, and would like them to take some next steps as far as some detailed work we need. And then I think I'm estimating we'll get our subcommittee together probably one more time. And then I think after that we'll be ready to come to the board with a more detailed recommendation for you too, or at the very least some more information for you as part of our facility planning process. So a good productive meeting. And then finally, lots of recognitions to share. We have quite a few of them in the cabinet update of things that we were able to capture before the weekend, which is always fun to see all the great things happening across the district. But we actually had quite a few big things over the weekend as well that I want to just highlight quickly, and they will be in future updates as well. But these are pretty significant, and we had a lot of them, so it was a good weekend for Linn-Mar across the board. First of all, our high school speech group at the state contest. Large group performers, all 9 judges gave our teams the highest rating possible for entries in TV news broadcasting, radio news announcing, and short film production, so a complete sweep for all 3 of those groups. Our boys swim team had a dominant performance at districts. We're district champs. Congratulations. We had 2 Linn-Mar robotics teams advance to state. We had 2 esports teams advance to state. All kinds of success across the board. And then our POMs were beyond the state level. They were nationals this past weekend. They were 8th nationally in their jazz routine and 3rd nationally in their POM routine. So I want to make sure to at least acknowledge all of those groups, especially our POMs at the national level, for their fantastic success and great work as well. So congratulations to all of those students and staff, right, Mr. Fry? Because he helps with our speech group as well. So, and that is all I have for you.
That is just fantastic. So, all right. Any questions for Shannon on anything he has shared?
Just, you mentioned that you were going to start the hiring process for Ed, and so Carol also right away?
Yep, we have Westfield's been posted for several weeks now. Novak, we just got posted today. The candidate pool will be a lot of overlap, obviously, between the 2 buildings since it's the same level. So we'll plan to do the interview process with the 2 staff in the 2 buildings at the same time, hopefully later on this month or early in March. So,
okay. Yep. I was thinking that. I just thought I'd ask again. Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to unfinished business.
Make a motion to award the bid for the Excelsior pavement replacement project to Rachi Construction at the lowest responsive bidder for a base bid of $1,254,500. alternate bid 1 in the amount of $96,000, and alternate bid 2 in the amount of $17,750, for a total amount of $1,368,250.
Second that.
So we have a motion by Rachel, a second by Sandra. Any discussion on this? Any questions? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve the submission of a request to the School Budget Review Committee for funding rate for fiscal year 2022 statewide voluntary preschool program, increased enrollment in the amount of $3,613.50 as part of the district's response to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
I have a motion by Barry and a second by Rachel. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the recommended updates to policy 204.9, public participation in board meetings to reflect the recent changes to audience communication procedures.
I second that.
I have a motion by Rachel and a second by Sandra. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
Second?
I have a motion by Clark and a second by Melissa. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
I have a motion by Melissa and a second tied between Clark and Rachel. We'll give it to Clark this time. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us through to board communications. I was going to talk about POMS, but you've covered it. So the only thing I want to share is that today kicked off National School Counseling Week. So we have a fantastic team of school counselors in the district. If you see them or you email them or you're friends with them, say hi, say great job, say thank you. We appreciate you if you're watching. Any other board communications?
I'd like to congratulate the two retirees, Craig Baldwin on his retirement and Lori Law, and thank them from the board and their contributions that they have made to our district.
One more quick comment, if you don't mind. I attended the Athletic Hall of Fame induction. Tremendous night for everybody involved, the excitement in the gym, and especially for one of our retirees, Larry Gass. It was a very emotional night for him and for everybody around, so it was just a special.
That's great. I'm glad you guys were able to go to that. All right, and looking at the board calendar, Matt, we've got you down for February 17th for City Council. Does that still work?
Yes.
Great. Let's see. Any volunteers? I know we still have time, but any volunteers for the March 3rd meeting for City
I'll do
Council?
that.
If anyone is a real planner, there's also one on March 17th.
Do it.
Thank you, Barry. We do have a board visit coming up to Echo Hill next week, and then our rescheduled Wilkins after that. So if you haven't let Gayla know if you're able to attend, please do so. And then our next board meeting is February 21st. I think that's it. Does anyone else have anything?
Adjourn.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Barry and a second by Melissa.
So none.
Thanks, Barry.
Wanted to know.
All right, all those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.